Hello, happy Monday, or whenever you're catching this, if you're catching the replay, welcome. So excited to be back for another episode of Body Talks. And this is in celebration of my book, Someone I Love Lives Here, which is my story with my struggles around food, body image, disordered eating, really self-worth, self-esteem, and really getting to the other side of that. And unfortunately, I know my struggles are not at all uncommon. And so many women, over 90% of women, struggle with body image, and so many women have similar stories. And Claire shared really vulnerably and openly with me, our guest today, Claire, her story. And I was really just blown away by how many parallels there are, how similar our journeys have been. And again, it breaks my heart, and I think that is why we need to tell our stories. We need to vocalize these things, because so often this kind of stuff, along with mental health, which I think really ties in, and that was part of my journey too, I think a lot of times we have a lot of shame, and we also tend to feel like we're the only one. I know for me growing up, I definitely thought, and well into my 20s, well into my journey, I thought I was the only one struggling with this stuff. And when I really started to go deeper and kind of do the work I'm doing now with coaching and with really getting to the other side of this, I started to realize that unfortunately it was not just me, but actually the norm. And so many women experience these things. And again, I really think with some of these issues, they thrive in isolation, when we're not talking to people, when we think we're the only one. We really can't feel supported then, and we feel very alone, very isolated. So I really believe in the power of telling our stories. I think it's so healing for both ourselves to really own our stories and get to share, and then for others as well. So I am so excited to bring Claire on here today. And I also wanted to announce that my Empowered Eating Method program is back open. It's going to start 5 weeks from tonight. And I'm just so excited to have that back as well. That's really my solution to, obsessively counting calories, or, a lot of drama around food, really either struggling with, what to eat, or any kind of yo-yo dieting, emotional eating, any of those patterns. That's really my solution, Empowered Eating Method. I believe in it so much. So go check out my most recent post if you are looking for help in that department. I would love to have you, or send me a DM if you have questions, please. So I am going to bring Claire on here and tell you a little bit more about who she is, and then we'll get into this conversation. So as she gets on here, I'll tell you a little bit about who Claire is. She is a recent Marquette University graduate. Welcome, Claire. I was just going over your background. Let me set this up. So she's a recent Marquette University graduate, and within the last few years, Claire has combined her love for the Milwaukee community and her passion for helping others to start her pet sitting and dog walking business. Claire graduated with a criminology degree to work in counterterrorism, but found herself in a completely different field. Struggling to find her path amidst a pandemic, Claire found solace in the routine of her daily physical activities outside, working with pets and their people. That physical exercise, paired with a priority on mental and emotional health through small wins, has allowed Claire to find a happy and healthy balance every day. So welcome, Claire. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Can you hear me okay and everything?
Yes. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yay. Okay, yeah. Good.
Yes.
Well,
and
go ahead.
I was just saying, as I was, reading a little bit about what you shared, I really am blown away by it. Reads exactly like my story. Like every part of it, I'm like, me too, me too, me too. And it really is, it's just so crazy, how this stuff shows up in so many women's lives. And you're quite a bit younger than me too. And even my mom, I gave her copy of my book on Saturday, and she was reading it, and she texted me yesterday, and she's like, what's crazy is I went to high school 27 years after you, and it's a lot of the same issues. And it's like, this stuff keeps showing up until we talk about it and, really get it out in the open. So I just want to acknowledge you for being here today. And I'm so excited for you to share what you're going to share. I know it's going to help so many people. So
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm a little nervous, but all in excitement. So,
Yeah, totally. I always get nervous going live too. I think that's totally normal. So, yeah. So I'd love to hear just in your own words a little bit more about you and, tell us what you're all about, personal, professional, whatever you want to share.
sure. So, yeah, as you mentioned, recent Marquette graduate. It's been a few years now. I recent just is like off the tip of my tongue always, but I graduated in fall of 2019 and intended to go into counterterrorism, like you said, and just completely shifted gears. I sort of took a step back and kind of reevaluated a few other needs that I wanted to address in my life, and found that that was a great opportunity, but I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable and confident in the field that I was pursuing. So I decided to license my pet sitting business and dog walking business. I had been doing that part-time while in school and just sort of fell in love with it. Like you mentioned, like I love working with people and their pets, and I love being outdoors. So I found a lot of super healthy, I don't know, pathways through this business to both heal myself mentally, physically, emotionally. It's been a very therapeutic process. Not to say that being an entrepreneur isn't hard work by any means, but it's been really fun, and I've been very fortunate to have found something that I not only really enjoy, but it helps me to stay healthy, and it's really helped me to sort of fall back in love with myself. So it's been a fun journey.
Aw, that is so beautiful. And I want to just commend you for, at a very early age, to just really looking at, is this the right career path for me and what's really going to be healthy for me and what's going to make me feel good? Because we spend a lot of our lives in our profession and working, and I think that's really important that we're doing things that are good for us on every level, physically, mentally, emotionally. So I think that's so beautiful that you took that step back. And, I can totally relate. I think most of us, we get to college and it's like, pick a major. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And you're a teenager. So it's like, I don't know. So, yeah. So I just want to acknowledge that that's so amazing that you did take that step back and make a massive pivot and, really go for what you felt passionate about. And, again, being able to heal through your professional journey is super beautiful as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I am so glad that I made the changes and the steps that I did to be here. So I feel very fortunate, and I'm hoping to only continue further on this journey. So.
Mhm. Yeah, totally, totally. So I'd love to hear, kind of going into your story, really your earliest memories, like when you first remember having any kind of body image struggles, or really having this awareness around you, like feeling like you needed to be a certain size or anything like that. I'd love to hear what you first remember with that.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm relatively young too. So I'm only 23, but I remember having some sort of body image issues as early as elementary school. I remember hearing stories of family members and their own expressions of um, their own personal struggles with body image issues and how that had related to the way that I saw myself. Um, and not to place any blame by any means, but more so to express how unfortunate it is that as women, we all experience this. So I remember hearing, like, someone in a family comment on the way that they saw themselves and thinking, if you see yourself in this light, like, how do you see me? And then in turn, um, my image of myself changing into fitting some sort of mold. And I remember like counting calories super early, not having any idea as to what a calorie was or really what the entire nutritional value chart on the back of a package meant, but just knowing that a high number was not good. And building a relationship with food, and then also my own body image in a way that I felt was necessary to appease a certain image to boys that I had been growing up with. So I remember a moment where I was biking to school in the fourth or fifth grade, and some high schoolers that were probably just, I don't want to justify whatever they were doing, but yelled sort of a not nice comment about my weight out the car window, just probably being stupid. But the way that had affected me moving forward, and my desire to attain some sort of image or validation that, like, you know, was appealing to boys that were older than me, was something that I really struggled with. So moving up into middle school, I struggled with some eating disorders that led into high school and my earlier years of college. And it wasn't until I actually sought help and began to reflect on these moments in my life and sort of create a timeline that I really was able to make sense of myself and my own journey and why I am the way that I am and where I'm at because of these moments. And then reassessing how do I move forward, and how do I sort of build a stronger relationship with myself that isn't reflective of what others think of me or what I think others may think of me. So that's a little bit of a recap.
Yes, yeah. And again, I'm just blown away by how many things I'm like, wow, same, very similar experiences. But I would say, I mean, I didn't start doing my healing work until I was 27, 28. So again, like, I mean, to be 23 years old and even in a place here today where you're, you know, willing and open to share your story, like, again, I just want to acknowledge you for that. I know everyone has their own timeline and there's no like right age, but again, to really catch it, and what you just said was so powerful and so insightful, with being able to look at the timeline of your life and make sense of, like, why am I this way? Because I think people at any age, we can just kind of be on autopilot and be like, it is what it is, I've always been this way, and like, sure, yeah, that could be our story and then that's our reality. Or we can really step back and say, like, okay, you know, what happened that caused me to think in this way? And is that really how I want to continue operating? Or do I want to make some changes, make some shifts? And yeah, I think that's incredible that you've done that at such a young age. Sorry, that's such a busy, loud, we live on Water Street, so it's very noisy. But also I wanted to mention, or kind of from your story with that comment of those boys yelling something out the window, again, it's like, you know, teenagers are not the nicest people all the time. So like, who knows what was going on with them? But it really is insane, like how little comments like that, something that someone might not think twice about, you know. And I think really too, like with the internet today and social media, again, sometimes people just say things and they don't really think about it. And it's like, that can have such a huge impact on someone. So, and I know for me too, you know, things that were said to me at a young age, I really took it in and, you know, believed it as truth and really went about proving people wrong, or, you know, like trying never to be that. And it's like, that doesn't get us anywhere. But again, it's, when I talk about trauma or traumatic experiences, I always say it can be something so small like that. It can be this comment that really you take to heart, and it creates this whole, you know, ripple effect on your life. And yeah, words can hurt. Like, I grew up with the sticks and stones can hurt my bones, but words can never hurt me. And I'm like, that is BS, because they can have a very damaging effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's unfortunate. And I'm at a place in my life where I obviously don't fault anybody. And I think that I can recall these times And they were very powerful to me, obviously, because they've shaped me to who I am today. But most of the time in those instances, it can be so quick that somebody that said it probably has no recollection of it.
Right.
So it is interesting just how powerful words truly are. So I think too, the words that not you specifically, but we feed ourselves, just everybody, are so powerful. So once you start to latch on to an idea that maybe somebody subconsciously planted in your head that now you, or has tainted your image of self, the way that you start to talk to yourself can likely become, negative and cyclical in the way that you think. And it's unfortunate, it's interesting, but definitely feeding myself positive affirmations. And it seems silly, but I've heard a ton of people use, like, would you talk to your friend the way that you talk about yourself, or would you talk about your friend that way? And I want to say every single time, no, especially in those high school years. But then would I be friends with myself? Probably not. So just little things like that, taking the step to recognize, all right, the way that I'm talking to myself is impacting my mental health, and in turn my image of self and my body image and physical health and emotional health and things like that is very important to reflect on. So
yeah, it is so powerful. And it takes time to shift, but it's so worth doing, to shift that conversation we're having with ourselves, because it's like, yeah, I always say too, like, we should be our biggest cheerleaders, not our biggest critics. But unfortunately, that's so common that we are so critical of ourselves. And like you said, I always use that reference too. Like, if you wouldn't talk to, I say, your best friend or a pet, a pet like that, like, you shouldn't be treating yourself that way either. So such a powerful, powerful reminder.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also wanted to share, I know Claire from Boss Ladies MKE in Milwaukee, and I have to share this with you because I think it's really important. Again, kind of what we do in our heads and like the stories we create. And also, as I was saying in the beginning, so often we think like, oh, it's just me. I'm the only one who struggles with body image and anxiety and all of these things. So from what I know of Claire, again, from this professional setting in this Boss Ladies networking group, it's like, I see you and you always have the most awesome pictures and look so happy, and you're such a beautiful woman, and have this thriving business. So it's, again, like, we look at people and we're like, wow, like, her life must be so perfect, and it must have always been that way. Like, it's very easy for for many years I'll create that story about someone else. And so again, reading a little bit more and learning about your journey and your struggles, it was like, wow, I guess I never would have guessed that from you. So I'd love to just hear, any experience you've had with that. Maybe yourself, either any kind of seeing other people's highlight reels, or just anything you would share on that note.
Sure. I think that it's also very easy to not only make assumptions about other people's lives, but especially as women, to use those assumptions and sort of turn them into a sense of competition, like a negative, like, this person has XYZ and I feel the need to compete with them because they are potentially a threat to, I don't know, like stealing my boyfriend in high school, or something that seems silly to chat about now, but those things really weigh on us. And it's interesting how they sort of like pit us against each other as women too, when it is interesting that a majority of us, you said 90%, but yeah, like a vast majority of us have struggled with a lot of these issues ourselves. And it's unfortunate too that we feel some sense of shame going through these things, because if we're all facing this, similar issues, we'd be so much stronger together as a support system. And so, yeah, that's just, I don't know, kind of side note, but in terms of like my own journey, I struggled with binge eating disorder for a while, and attempts to sort of cope with the craziness that had been going on in my life. And I remember being so consumed with constant thoughts of food and eating, whether it be, you know, what am I going to eat next? When am I going to eat next? What was the last thing I ate? How am I going to work that off? What if I have a salad next to compensate for that last thing? And then what if I eat the salad and I'm still hungry and I have to, you know, just, it goes on. And I think that impacted a lot of the relationships that I had, both intimate relationships and also friendships, whether it be, you know, accepting less than I thought I was deserving of, or rejecting the help that I wasn't willing to seek at a time, or even things as small as not going out in social settings because I was insecure and didn't want to be the, you know, quote unquote, like largest girl of the photo that was going to be posted on Instagram. And my self-deprecating tendencies started to sort of like rip me away from the support system that I had. And I think, again, the way that I spoke to myself, like everything sort of, layers isn't the right analogy, because I think it all began to feed into all of these different experiences and these different aspects of my life that once I was able to recognize, okay, these are the same thoughts that I'm having over and over again, and they're a result of something. How can I make that mental shift to decide whether a thought is actually of value to me? I think a lot of times, especially when you're younger, you get caught up in thinking that like a thought that you have is just taken at face value, like that's the fact. And taking a little bit more time to reflect and seeing like, okay, I have this thought. Is it a good or bad thought? Is it a thought that's, you know, factual, or just, you know, random nonsense that jumped into my head? And then assessing it and retraining myself to only acknowledge those positive thoughts. And I think it's still a work in progress. I think everybody could probably say so too, to their own journeys. But yeah, I think that learning to retrain the way that I see myself has been a good reflection of myself to other people as well. I've been able to attract different, more positive relationships. I'm not putting out there as much negativity, and I'm able to attract those people that are willing to feed me those, you know, I don't know, the good energy and positive thoughts that just not come as easily as they once, as they do now, as they once did.
So. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. It's like, it's really two parts. It's like, first, the beliefs we have about ourselves are really a huge part of what kinds of relationships we attract. Like, I know when I was not in a good place, I was always attracting relationships with men where they would also talk down to me or make, you know, mean comments about my looks and my body and, you know, say things about that. But I look back, and again, I don't point fingers at them. I mean, they weren't guys that I would ever, you know, have a conversation with now, but I'm like, that was me, because that's how I saw myself. And so, and same with, you mentioned, you know, women being pitted against each other, same thing. I always felt like, oh, I can't trust other women, and women are catty, or it felt very competitive. So that was always my reality until I started really working on myself and doing the deeper work to shift those beliefs. And then now today, my relationships are completely the opposite, you know, both romantic and friendships. So, you know, it's that, but it's also like choosing to get around different people too. That's something we can always do, is like, if we don't like where we're at anymore, and we're surrounding ourselves with people who are not really good for us in any like any sort of way, whether it's a lot of gossip or negativity, or maybe their habits are no longer something we want to engage in. It's like that is also on us to say like, okay, I need to get around different people, and, you know, getting around people, you know, who really inspire us and lift us up and see us as like that best version of us. It's so, so important. So I feel like it's kind of the two-part thing there with who we're surrounding ourselves with has such a big impact on our lives.
Absolutely. And I think we shared sort of similar like relationships in the past where I again, you know, don't fault anybody, but it's almost as if when you do outwardly express your negative feelings about yourself, it can sort of give permission to others to talk in the same way about you that you've been talking about yourself. It's one of those instances where it's just, again, like it fueling, you know, a cycle of, I talk badly about myself. Somebody else may see that and think that they can say the same comment and not realize that even though I said it to myself first, the way that, you know, somebody else saying it has a much greater impact, or could potentially have a much greater impact. So.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So, especially since we have such similar journeys, like I know what that place feels like, and it's like, you know, that's kind of a whole deep, dark territory. So I'm curious, was there like a massive turning point, or just like everything you've done, you know, even stepping back, looking at your thoughts, looking at all of this stuff? I know you said you decided to seek support and get help, but was there like a certain point where you're like, I need to make a change, or did something shift, or was it kind of just a gradual thing?
You know, I don't know. I can't recall like one pivotal moment. I think it was gradual. I think that when I parted ways with a relationship that was just not healthy for either party, myself and the other person, I think that was a really pivotal moment in my journey, because it allowed me time to be alone in a weird way. And, you know, finding that I am okay on my own, and like seeking help was a really big step that I took, and helped me work through a lot of these things. I think getting out of that relationship and then seeking the help helped me to talk through a lot of the trauma, and then diagnose those issues in my timeline, and just sort of make sense of the way that I had been thinking. And I know I shared this with you before, but I constantly saw like everything in my life, and my filter was through a black and white lens. So if I wasn't perfect, I was a failure. And if I wasn't good at this, I was bad at it. And if I didn't win, I lost. And if I was, you know, wasn't skinny, I was fat. And it was just, it took me a really long time to recognize that there is no sense of perfect, and that the whole world, our whole lives are found amidst gray area, right. You know, and then being okay with that is, you know, how do I go from thinking I'm one or the other and that's it, to recognizing the place that I'm at, and then making a goal and trying to achieve that goal. You know, like, okay, I may not be the best in this area, or I may not like this aspect of myself, but that doesn't mean I'm, you know, entirely poor at something, or I'm entirely bad. And then recognizing that, like, okay, it's not the whole person, it's not the whole issue, but maybe something smaller makes it a lot more digestible too. It makes it easier to tackle and talk through an issue that I couldn't put my finger on for however many years. And then when I began, you know, seeking help and talking with a counselor, recognizing, okay, this is connected to this, and like this one thing, like I've never been able to pinpoint where these emotions and these thoughts that are intrusive and negative are coming from. And it made it a lot easier to address that issue than to just be like, all shut out, all, you know, I don't know, I'm just a hot mess, but recognizing like, okay, this one little area, like that makes sense. It's easier to move forward when it's not through a black and white lens. And I think that also allowed me to celebrate little wins, like I had like mentioned. I'm somebody that I'm not really great at asking for help, and I'm not really great at recognizing my own successes. And I think it's because I like to go a million miles an hour. But recognizing that it's okay to be proud of myself, and it's okay to celebrate the things that I've done in my life or my day to day to be a better version of myself for not only myself, but then for those around me. It's I think that's been a really big like win for me, a big win, to celebrate the little wins and to recognize that it's okay to be proud. And so I just gave you a whole rant about.
I love all of it. And like, again, I can so relate to so much of what you shared, the black or white thinking. I always say make friends with the gray, but it's because I've always struggled with that too. And I still notice, and I'm curious if you see this pop up with being an entrepreneur, because a lot of things that I've worked through with my food and body, I'll see them start to seep in to my entrepreneurial journey. And the perfectionism is one of them. Like, just recently with the book coming out, there are a few mistakes that went to print, and I was like, lost some sleep over it. Of course, it like comes into my brain after 10 p.m. Like, and my husband actually gave me like a sports analogy. It was like, it'd be like, you know, expecting, we love the Bucks, so like Giannis doesn't make 100% of his free throws, and I was like, oh, that's so good. It's like, why am I holding myself to this insane standard that like no one can reach? So I still see some of that, you know, show up in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just interesting. And then what you said too with the small wins, that's always with my coaching clients, we really work on that. And it's something that's really shifted my life too, because even the big wins, I never used to be able to really celebrate it or feel proud of myself. It was always just like, well, what's the next thing? Like, I was so hooked on achievement, but even when I would achieve something massive, I didn't know how to celebrate it. It's really something that we have to kind of learn. Like, if we're not used to doing that, or we're not comfortable with being proud of ourselves, it's something that we actually have to work on and cultivate. And it's like nothing happens overnight. Like, we don't build a business, or I think of my book, like it was, you know, it's not about the big things. It's like one page at a time, one step at a time. Like, that is always how we reach the big stuff too, the big goals. And if we don't know how to celebrate ourselves day to day, it's like we're never going to be able to enjoy the journey. And then even sometimes when we reach the really big things, we still, again, don't know how to celebrate it, you know, and be proud of ourselves.
Yeah, I feel 100% the same way. I catch myself in those, you know, moments and like perfectionist tendencies, and also not being able to separate and find the time for myself, which can be difficult as a new entrepreneur. I'm learning to set like boundaries and limits in my work, which has allowed me more time to myself, which has allowed me more time to reflect and recognize like how crazy it is that I've been able to, you know, do X, Y, Z, or work on these things, or how far I've come, and just in the hustle and bustle of things, it's easy to get caught up, especially when your expectation is so high of yourself. And just like, you know, I think we also have like a drive to, well, I feel sometimes as if I don't take a step back, and if I'm giving myself a break, if I'm not working, then that time isn't of value. And it's taken me a lot to recognize that, like, oh, taking those breaks is normal. It's healthy. Everybody gets those. And it's been a learning curve for me to recognize, like, okay, like, just because you're not doing something doesn't mean that it's a day wasted, or it doesn't mean that, you know, there's always going to be tomorrow, and you always have an opportunity to like take a break. And there's, you know, I don't know, it's finding a balance.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, and I've struggled with that too. And it's like we have to give ourselves permission to rest and relax and play and have fun, or we get burnt out really quick. And we're not, even in our businesses, like I don't think our businesses can thrive if we're constantly working or thinking about work. Cause I know that's the other thing as an entrepreneur is even like some days where I'm like, well, I didn't really do anything, but I sat here and like, stressed about work or thought about work. So that's not great either. So really learning how to have those boundaries, how to have that balance, how to create that space. I really think it makes every area of our lives so much better. But it
Mhm.
is, again, a hard thing to learn when you have your own business, because it's like there's always more that you can do. There is. And being okay with that and being like, I'll do it tomorrow, or I have this week off. It's like that's okay, and knowing that it's not going to all fall apart.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. So I'd love to just hear before we wrap up. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of your daily habits, any practices you have, anything you do to really keep yourself as a business owner, and also to keep yourself mentally, emotionally, physically healthy. Like what really works for you? I'd love to hear.
Sure. So this is a relatively new habit that I'm trying to get into, and I've actually found it to be super beneficial. But something as small as like even just one daily affirmation has really helped to start my day in a lot more positive light. I mean, I feel like I'm putting the energy into myself to start believing in myself at the beginning of my day. And it helps me to recognize every day that there is no shame in loving myself. I mean, I felt embarrassed. I don't know if he's still on here, but my wonderful boyfriend was on here for a good amount of time. And I felt so embarrassed to say these things in the mirror or to put like a sticky note up. And we've been together for years and he's heard me say these negative things. So why is it harder for me to say these positive things? And it's really been beneficial to me to allow myself to love myself. I think we're sort of trained as a society that if you love yourself, that you're selfish or that you have a big head. And that's absolutely not the case. I think being able to be comfortable in like, this is who I am. I should be proud that I did this today and that I am strong, and that you posted today, like, don't chase. That's my big daily affirmation right now. Funny enough, is I don't chase, I attract. That's just been super beneficial to me, and it like gives me the positive start to my day, but it also allows me to love myself so that I can be the best version of myself for not only myself but for others. So if I am in a negative mindset or state, or I'm starting my day off not as positive, that reflects my work, that reflects how other people are impacted in their days. And just being able to start at square one and just recognize, like, this is okay, I'm okay, I'm great, I'm more than okay, has been very beneficial to me. So I think doing it in the mirror too has been, not just like recognizing I'm strong, I'm confident, but saying it to yourself is really powerful.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, and it's just like, it's funny what you shared about, doing it in front of your boyfriend, because I just started working with mala beads. There's like 80 something. I don't know the number, but there's a lot of them where you do an affirmation. You could do that. And I'm like, oh, I'll only say it out loud if he's not home. My husband, I'm like, that's so weird. Like you just shared, we say the other stuff about ourselves. So yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I think again, starting your day with that and looking in the mirror, there's so much power in that, and like really shifting our relationship with how we see ourselves too, in the mirror. And I love what you said about also like self-love not being selfish, because I think about when I'm not feeling good about myself, and especially the years that was my norm, every day I did not feel good about myself. Like that was not when I was the nicest person or the best version of me, because if we don't feel good about ourselves and if we're not loving ourselves, it's almost impossible to give that to other people. you know, in a really deep way, or, you know, to say hi to strangers on the street or whatever it is, you know what I mean? To be kind to other people. If we're not being kind to ourselves, that's really, you know what I mean? And then on the flip side, when I feel really good about myself and getting to this place where that's my norm, I'm like, I'm a much better human. And, you know, people definitely want to get me on the days that I feel good. And that starts with our relationship with ourselves. So again, that inner work is not only a gift for us, but everyone we encounter, everyone we interact with. And so it's like the least selfish thing we could do to take care of ourselves in that way and really love on ourselves. And
Yeah, it's a good, it's like a mirror's placed in front of you. I mean, I said literally stand in front of the mirror, but what you put out there, you feel back 10 times. And I don't know, I think if we all could continue on this journey, can you just imagine like what we'd be capable of if we all were feeding each other all of this positivity all the time? It'd be really great.
yeah, totally. I totally agree. So yeah, and I think this is a big part of it is you know, sharing our stories, talking about these things that often are not talked about. So again, I just want to acknowledge you and celebrate you for being here today. I know you were nervous, but this was amazing, and everything you shared, I'm just like, I'm blown away, and you shared so many powerful things, and I just really appreciate you sharing so openly, so vulnerably. So thank you, Claire. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Justine. You're doing great things. I love watching this. So I'm honored to be here. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. And yeah, you've got someone cheering you on here. Yes, Claire. So yeah, thank you guys all for joining us, and I will see you all very soon. And also, before we go, also I was gonna say, definitely go. I'm gonna tag Claire's pet setting business too. Go follow both her personal and her professional, because she posts really cute stuff. So definitely go follow her over there as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yes, looks like it. Looks like the dream, hanging out with cute pets. So, all right, have a great evening, you guys, and thank you again for joining us.